SmallBizPro, and so we grow. Using procurement, program, and control. I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Ooh, yeah. I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Ooh, yeah. I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Business Zone with
Crystal
and Coach Gilbert Buchanan, your small business paramedic. And today, folks, we're gonna have an amazing show. We have one special guest and one special in the field correspondent that's gonna join us today, and my wonderful co-host, Coach Crystal. How are you doing?
Hey everyone, I am good. Another week. We are sailing quickly to Christmas.
Oh my God, don't remind me.
we appear to be on a high-speed train to December. We have election day on Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
So we want everyone to go out and vote. It's so important. I put together my ballot last night and did all my research and feel quite confident in whom I'm voting for. And so I'm going to drive it to Norwalk, I believe.
Oh, man. You got to go all the way over there?
Well, that's because I want to make sure it goes in.
You want to make sure it's safe.
And nobody going to touch it. It's not some long. See, in Norwalk, they have it's federal building. You just can't go walk up tampering machines.
They can't start climbing buildings and, jumping in and doing whatever they did on January 6th, right?
So I'm going to take a little ride on Sunday afternoon and before I start guarding and drop it in, just drive it by, drop it in the box.
Oh, man.
And come on back home and feel confident that on Tuesday that my ballot is going to be counted appropriately.
I hear that. It's amazing. We're such a high technologically advanced nation, but yet when it comes to our ballots, it's like mediocre. It cannot get that high value technological approach that it deserves. I don't understand what's going on with that.
Well, it could if we weren't sure that people would be tampering with it from Russia or wherever.
Russia is stretching its long arm and meddling in our elections as usual.
We have too many people trying to destroy our democracy. So that's why, I'm sure we could, but can we trust it, right? Can we trust that it's going to go where it's going to go? So I'm just going to, we have our ballots. You can drop, there's boxes everywhere. We actually happen to be quite blessed that we don't have all the shenanigans that are going on across the country. At least in the state of California, or at least Los Angeles. I can't count for some of these little small spots, but at least we don't know. There's not a lot of tampering going on. But in other states, long lines and having to show proof and all of the craziness kind of take away your ability. Your right. It's your right to vote, and it is actually your voice.
That is crazy, man. That is crazy.
Very important.
This is how I look at this. This issue can be resolved in a few seconds by those Supreme Court judges just making a declaration saying, "Hey, you meddle, or you do any of that stuff, you're going to jail." That's how they need to do it. They need to make that kind of ruling, but everybody's staying quiet. I think Carlos is trying to get in. He said the link does not work. So he's trying to use the link. Doesn't work at all. So
okay.
Is there another way that he can log in?
I'm gonna put this in the chat, and then you can actually then you can actually send him the link. Okay. I'm gonna put it in the private chat. Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell him.
All righty, there it is. So you can copy that and send it over to him. Yeah, they could, except for, remember that guy that was in office about 5 years ago, a couple years ago?
The orange man?
Yeah, remember him? So,
Yeah.
well, Carlos is here. He's visiting. He's visiting in on the outside.
Oh,
So
yes.
remember, hey Carlos, we're doing uh our little intro there, and then we're gonna bring you in so you can tell us what you're doing and that you're running again or as a candidate, and then we're gonna kick off our show of balancing business, love, and relationships. Yeah, I guess we could, Gilbert, if there had not been some tampering
Yeah, exactly.
and selective placement of the
Yeah.
Supreme Court.
It is crazy, man. It is so crazy. I don't understand why it's so difficult. They do it for everything else, so why can't they do it for that? You know?
No, because you know
Th-
why. Because you know why. You
Mhm.
know what. So
Mhm.
it's a battle.
Yeah.
Yes, we are going on right now, and even I noticed even on our ballot when I was filling it out, and I always do intensive research, and so you're looking through some of them. Some of them I actually know because a lot of them I've had on the community briefing. But some you go, okay, he sounds good, and then you go in and you go, wait, they just 10 minutes ago changed from being a Republican to a Democrat. What's that about?
I
What's
get,
that about? So, I had my criteria as what I was looking for and and then, who endorsed them and so forth and so on. So this is the midterm elections is really important, especially in the Black community. Our numbers are always very low during
yeah.
the midterms, and
Mhm.
we need to vote like we did when Obama was being elected and he was running, so
Yeah.
that we can make sure because we got some critical stuff going on.
Yeah, I
The
think there are some propositions going on out there right now that's very confusing to a lot of people.
Right,
I think Proposition 29 is one where they're trying to close down those dialysis centers, right?
yes,
And a lot of
uh-huh.
people who are suffering with dialysis and what they call that transplant, kidney transplant issues and
Kidney
all of that.
treatment period, uh-huh,
Yeah, they're afraid that they may close those centers. So
yeah, so that's
you
important.
know, I don't get this though, Krista. Why would they want to make that a political issue? To jeopardize someone's health just to get some motion on a ballot, and then you're going to close down these centers? Come on. What
Well,
kind of state are we living in?
the
I don't
same
get
one that
that.
takes away women's freedoms to do what they want with their body.
Oh my Lord. Ugh, I
so
don't get it, man.
Yeah, so the same one. We've become very puritanical, I guess. And
Yeah.
just think about it. Look how hard we've worked to move technology and the world into this futuristic type of platform like Disneyland and Tomorrowland, right? We've worked hard to get here. Now all of a
Yeah.
sudden they want to take you back to 1950.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, that's crazy. And I
19,
think there's another. I don't know if it's a proposition or not that's out there. They're trying to ban affirmative action all across the board. I know they banned it here in California because they did that back in 1995, 96. So because of Proposition 209, they were able. That
mhm.
was successful. They were able to eradicate that, but for the whole nation. So they're trying to ban affirmative action for college as admission. So people who are trying
So
to go to school, and you know how they say, well, some people are well-to-do, they can go to the elite universities, and the ones who are not well-to-do from the hood, like you and I,
mhm.
we gotta, they gotta give us some kind of allowances so we can get in there in order to balance the scale. So now they're saying, we're not doing that anymore. If you can't measure up to be an elite, you can't come to these elite universities.
So yeah, it's an affirmative action that's before the Supreme Court. But guess
Hmm.
what? When that what happened, I posted something on my Facebook and the realities of the affirmative action. So USC was one that was pushing that in to eliminate it, right? That it was equal
Yeah.
fair ground for everyone, right?
Hmm.
Well, now number of years later, they realized that, wait a minute, the school population is a white and Asian. So what happened to the blacks and the Hispanics, right? They didn't get in. So they realized that their schools are not very diverse. Black it was white, Asian, and international students. And so now they're like, oh, wait, that didn't quite work the way we thought it was supposed to work, right? And so, and the people that benefited most from affirmative action was not Black people or people of color. It was actually white women. That's who actually benefited the most from affirmative action. So,
but see, even with USC talking about, oh, it backfired, it didn't work. We thought we were going to have diversity. Now we don't really have diversity. So now I don't think they cared about that at all. I think they care about the federal dollars that they're losing, because the federal agencies are the ones who pump the dollars into diverse universities. And they see they weren't getting that anymore because only maybe a handful, maybe 3 classification of ethnicities were attending their universities. Oh my God, our funding is being cut. We got to make it diverse again. That's what it is. It's all about the money. You follow the money with these entities. That's all they're about. So I don't think they cared about diversity. They care about their money. Just like with the Community Reinvestment Act. CDBG. Right. The CDBG is funding that every city with a population over 50,000 receive from Washington every year for beautification, to enhance communities and all of that. Have you ever heard about LA doing any of that? No. What did they do with that money?
I know in South Central there ain't a whole lot of beautification.
Exactly. So what did they do with that money? You see what I'm saying? They just play the game just to get enough money to pump it into other programs. That's what they do, man. And a lot of these nonprofits around here, I'm telling you, I can't wait to get my millions co-hosts, because when I get my millions, I'm going to put a lot of these nonprofits who are supposed to be community economic development focused, I'm going to put them on blast. Because I'm going to do a lot of what they're supposed to be doing. I'm going to be doing that.
And a lot of times they're behind a rock and a hard space as well. And we're going to bring Carlos on, especially since he's running for office. So he's probably has some inside stuff, or at least he knows he has a political philosophy here. Some of it is that the sponsors, since that's how you derive your money, they really take you through so many different loops and turns and you really. And a lot of times you have to shift from what you really believe and why you are actually why you even are supporting and existing as a nonprofit, just to meet what their needs are. And so when you finish jumping and doing your hoops and turns, you have very little money to focus on what you really want to focus on, but you have more money where you then have to kind of jump to their tune and make sure you're selling for them, right? And doing less for you. It's a broken system. That's what Carlos says. It's just broken all the way around. And I don't know how we fix it, but I do know we have to be much more progressive. And but we've become such a capitalist society. Do we really care about the people, or do we care about the money? And so I mean, because look at the homeless situation in LA. We've been dealing with the homeless for a better part of 20, 30 years. And before, in 2009, I remember my sister was part of the homeless count, and they were like at 59,000 or 50,000. I think that's what the number was on the street. Now it's at 69,000. And a lot of that took place because the moratoriums were lifted during the pandemic. The cost of housing. I mean, lose your job and see if you can make a rent payment of $2,500.
If anyone knows how to measure statistics and data, they want to look at whenever the economy gets hard, a lot of people lose their job, they lose their houses, then they become homeless. So that's all they got to do is just look at whenever the economy gets bad and people start losing jobs, start looking at the homeless number and see how that's. I think it's about 75,000 right now. They're documenting it at 60, 69 or whatever. I think it's about 75.
Oh,
but
I'm sure it is. And every year they didn't appointed this czar, that czar. Tons of money's been thrown at the situation, except for our building. We're gonna build all these houses, but they're gonna still cost you $3,000 a month to live in.
Yeah.
And they want you as a homeowner to put an ADU in your backyard and bring the homeless in your area.
What the hell do I want to put homeless people? I won't even put some of my families in my backyard. What are they talking about? Putting people that we don't know in our backyards?
Right.
Why don't they use all these abandoned buildings that they have and facilitate that transition? It's crazy, man.
Right. And then you hear this argument, which really kind of really irritates me, is that they say, well, a lot of them out there have mental illness. Well, you know what? If I had to live in the street, I am sure 10 minutes after that I'm going to be there, I'm going to be really going to have a mental challenge. Because, I mean, just the sheer fact that I got to live in the street, I'm going to have a mental problem. So they use that as like, oh, they don't really want help. They're meant, you go. Let's take you out your $175,000 job, take you out of your beautiful home, take you away from your car, and dump you downtown on Skid Row. Let's see how long you manage to balance your mental state of mind.
Man, I tell you, man, it's amazing. We're gonna have to do like multiple shows on this, man, because we're just touching the surface here real quickly. So we have one of our listeners, 69mega.com, talking about the dating AI. And 84%
I don't know
match.
So we got to check that out.
So I think they're looking at the title of our show today, where we're talking about entrepreneurship, love and relationship, how those can coexist and how it will work. So let's let in our field correspondent, Mr. Carlos Garcia.
Yeah, let him tell us what office he's running for,
yes.
and how he gonna go about solving some of our problems.
This is your reporter out in the field, man, just jumping out of the skin with this conversation.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our official field correspondent, Mr. Carlos Garcia from FYI Technologies. He is running for the city council right now, unopposed, in the city of Pomona, and because he did such a great Upland, the city of Upland. Now, because he did such a great job the last this last session around, they decided, all his opponent decided, hey, man, I'm afraid of this guy. This guy is too good. I'm not going to run against him. So he's running unopposed this time, folks. So, Mr. Garcia, welcome to the Business Zone.
Or he did such a fantastic job that there was no need to bring anybody else in. Hey, Carlos.
Exactly.
Or as my third one goes, maybe people just don't care. I don't know. I'll take either one, right?
But you'll take either one. Either one will work, right?
But I appreciate you both for having me on the show.
Hey, man, it's always a pleasure. But you know what? I noticed your beard and your hair is getting whiter, man. Did those few months in office kind of did a number on you? What's going on?
So let me take. I actually, if you remember, we had this conversation. I came in halfway through the term, so I took over halfway through the term. I've served for 2 years.
Yeah.
And you both know me already, and some of the stuff that we've done over the time, the people that we've helped in the groups and the schools that we've been involved with. Yeah. I ran specifically to make a difference.
Right.
You already know I don't talk the talk. I'm going to roll up my sleeves, get my hands dirty, and let's do it.
Exactly.
It's easy to have an opinion when you're sitting behind a keyboard, but it's a lot different when you're called out. Let's go pick up some cash together. Let's go do some helping in the community. Then all of a sudden everybody's busy. Nobody can help you. You know what I mean? Oh, I got so and so's appointment. It's
I got a family situation I got to take care of.
My ice cream is melting, so I got to go back. But to answer your question, man, I've been I'm blessed to be running unopposed. The 2 years I spent, when I got into the in office, I wanted to take those 2 years and make it into something that raised the bar so high that even if you wanted to come in to run against me, and I welcome the competition.
Yeah.
But whether I lose or win,
Yeah.
keep up the momentum. You can't just slow down because you want it. And that's the same. A lot of folks were asking me too. So are you just kicking back because you're unopposed? I said, absolutely not. I said, I don't want folks to think that I'm taking this for granted. My momentum is going no matter what. I'm still running like if I had, because I ran against 3 other folks the last time as well.
Yeah.
So to me, it makes no difference if you're willing to step up and give the time, then do it. And as you know, there's a lot of issues locally that we have to address. You were talking about the homelessness and all of that stuff too.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of folks don't know, and it's reality, because I also I was involved in different programs like Crystal was with the county office and some of this. I did the homeless program, their technical training program, for about 2.5 years to the county office. We actually, that's first when I met Crystal was actually in one of those development programs that we did when she was teaching accounting and doing some of the
at Mount Sac.
Yeah, through Mount Sac. So through LA County, I was able to teach a lot of the homeless folks that wanted to get back on their feet. So this is the part you don't hear.
Yeah.
A lot of the folks that went through my program for the 2.5 years, we got them jobs. I went above and beyond teaching them, okay, if I'm going to hire you, this is what I expect from you to learn and do it. So the consistency and the fact that they would also tell me, hey, I don't want to just keep putting out my hand for a handout. I want to earn. I want to be able to move out on my own. But that's the part you don't hear, because there's a lot of folks, unfortunately, that fall down on their luck. They want to get back up, and sometimes they don't know what resources to go to. But I'm very proud of, like here in Elkland, for example, we have an awesome police department. We have a homeless coordinator, and our impact team is always out there dealing with the homeless. And I'm going to tell you, some want the help, and we document that, and we make it a big deal because they want to get off the streets. There's others, they're not just there as vagrants, man. They just really want to create chaos. And you also have, let's be truthful, we also have the mental aspect of it too. A lot of these folks should be in a facility getting the mental care that they do need, because they can't make decisions on their own. And unfortunately, we don't really have that. So you have all these 3 aspects or elements a lot of cities are dealing with. In reality, dude, if we talk about LA, it's gotten so much out of control. As much money, you're going to tell me, and I'm going to say this flat out, as much money as these organizations have spent, millions that are getting millions to help the homeless. Why do we still have a problem?
Exactly. And it's growing. It's growing.
I'm going to tell you also, you talked about CDBG, right?
Yes.
If you ever sit down in a CDBG meeting and you look at some of these nonprofits, for example, or they're dealing with homeless and all that stuff too. Look at the numbers, how much they're asking, and what the question should be asked. What percentage of that is overhead or
exactly
administrative costs versus how much is Crystal or how much is Gilbert going to get the help that they need? And more than not is probably going to be about maybe 5 to 10% of that whole 100% pie. And it's what really bugs me, man, that people really need the help. But it's become such, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate stuff for this, for saying this, but it's become a money-making machine. Not really helping people that need help.
Man. It is. It's always been. See, they talk about welfare programs and they penalize us, people of color, for actually accessing those programs when we're down on our luck. But look at who is benefiting from these welfare programs. These government, the big companies. These big companies who are aligned with government, they're buddies with them. They go to the same country clubs. They're the ones who are benefiting from this. They don't look at it as welfare, but it is. They're getting all this free money for doing nothing. Nothing.
And the sad reality is, it should never even be about. It should never come down to somebody's skin color, race, what they believe in and all that. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. And the reality is, be kind. And if you can help someone, why would you want to wait for somebody to ask for help when you have the capability?
Exactly.
No agenda, no questions asked, but it's a very easy thing to do, but the hardest thing for a lot of people, because at the end of the day, it's, okay, if I'm doing this for you, what are you going to do for me? And unfortunately, that's what it's become for a lot of folks. I'm not saying everybody, but for a lot of folks.
I think our next guest, when she comes on, she can speak a little bit about the mental health part of that, because that's what she does, a lot of that kind of work too. So, she might be able to shine some light on people she's seen come into her office, and how they've been impacted by community, or the relationship, the household, or whatever it is. But it's just unbelievable that we allow these governments to get away with all of this. I mean, I've become so disenchanted by this whole, all this political running for office. And I don't care for any of the two parties. I don't care for any of them, because both of them come in office, none of them do anything. It's the same.
That's a perfect example, man, of what I'm going to tell you, that in my, we're broken down into 4 districts. So a big portion of my district is Democrat. Everybody that knows me, I've never denied the fact that I'm a Republican, but that doesn't mean, excuse my language, doesn't mean crap.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care if you're a Democrat or not. The bottom line is, Gilbert for mayor, I'll vote for that for sure.
Yeah.
You get a response on there too. But what I'm gonna,
that's our other field correspondents out there, Mr. Greg.
Right. But the reality is, man, it's when I ran again, it's the message, man. At the end of the day, I don't care what your national views are. I don't care what your emotions are. It's what you want to do to make a difference locally.
Right.
So whether you're Republican or Democrat, shouldn't we all be working together for the same common goal?
Exactly.
Exactly. It's a very simple concept.
Yeah.
But you got to remember too, man, that not only in politics, but in business as well, people forget where they start and why they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
At the end of the day, ask yourself why you, and even in education, that's another big piece too. You have administrators that are making a ton of money. And at the end of the day, you hear this, it's all about the kids. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not. It's about how much I'm going to make in my retirement. The less I do, the more money I can make. And that's reality. And I will tell you, through my career in education, I would say that I have a handful of folks, administrators, that can actually say we're really for kids, But to my point is, it's very disappointing where we are, because we created this divisiveness among us, period.
Exactly.
Exactly. And that was by design, Carlos. And just imagine, Carlos, based upon what you and I did at Mount Sinai, we had like a 90% employment
success rate
story with the young people. Just imagine if that program was with others like ourselves, was there teaching individuals how to, giving them a skill, right? It's like teaching them how to fish, not just giving them a handout fish. And I remember when I first started, and one of the things that part of my curriculum was that at that time it was like 150,000 bookkeeping and accounting positions open for hire. And it's always up there. Right now it's almost 200,000 jobs. Now imagine if all of the community college was teaching and helping extract people off of social services, giving them a skill, helping, and job ethics and working and how to work in a company. And look where everyone would be. Because by now they would be able to afford whatever apartment that was out there, because they actually had a tangible skill. But obviously, after we did that for 6 years, I think it was six or seven cohorts, it was gone. It was like it disappeared into thin air. And you're like, wait a minute, that was a working program.
And we're still trying to figure out what happened to that program, because I know they're still getting that kind of funding. So where did they put it?
It wasn't allocated to that part. No, I know that.
No. Well, I'm going to tell you, in talking about that too, a sad reality that a big proponent of that, and unfortunately we lost him, was David McElwain. Really somebody that was a very influential figure in trying to help people move forward and all of that. And I miss that gentleman, because he really not only I consider him a mentor in some of the navigations that, getting into Mount SAC, getting into LA County Office of Education. He was a very wise man, and he really went out of his way to help people.
Did COVID claim him?
No, I believe it was other health issues. They got him on that, but unfortunately, that was a huge driving force behind that program too.
Okay.
That he was a huge advocate, and I think that's had he still been around, I think that program would still be full force.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at. I think when we talk about a progressive and an effective politician, is bringing in those kind of programs that will solve the problems that we have. We are all business coaches and educators and so forth, and that's what we teach, right? If you're going to start a business that's going to solve a problem,
make a difference,
and make a difference in the marketplace, in the community that you live in, and I guess that's what we don't see. I see money thrown at it, but I don't see actual solutions. And we sit at some of the tables, not all of the tables, and then you get our city council, you get LA city council doing crazy stuff that had nothing to do with taking care of the people.
Talking about racial stuff and racial slurs and remarks and all of that.
I think we should open a cohort for just common sense, like the do's and don'ts of the. Don't be stupid or get that label, because you're going to get that certificate at the end of the day.
I think so too. Our other field correspondent, Mr. Greg Sneed, said rum punch at the city council meetings will ease the conflict.
Yeah, I don't know. That might not have been a good idea.
One of the two, right?
That might not have been a good idea at that city council meeting. Or maybe it may have. I don't know. Well, we definitely want to wish you the best of luck. And since you're the only one, I'm sure. So what are some of the things that you were able to accomplish? You've been there 2 years now.
2 years. And I ran on a platform, the top 3 were basically our public safety, definitely saving our parks, making sure that they become more family friendly. And also, this was during the time where COVID was also going on. So for me, it was like, how do I help those already in business stay in business? And how do I generate more revenue for our city with new businesses? So I've been able to kind of hit on all those 3. And that was in a 2-year span, which I hit every single one and then some. Now in a 4-year span, I want to be able just to continue it on those 3. To expand it to even better and greater things as well too. So
well, our network here is always ready, willing, and able to help you with any type of entrepreneurship services, training, development, business readiness, contract readiness, loan readiness. We can help you with those too, because we have infrastructure that's already set up for that. So all we got to do, man, is just know what those small businesses' needs are, and we can help them. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Even our field correspondent here, Mr. Greg Sneed, he does financial literacy. He provides that type of training and services for small businesses. So that might be an addition too.
So let me take off my council hat for a moment. We're talking about business also. That's also one of the things that I think we've all connected with in our own business, and what we do is we do help a lot of businesses in that aspect of it.
Yeah.
So it's again, I feel very blessed that my journey came across both of you guys. We've done some great things together and continue to do some great things together. And I just hope that as we get ready to close the year and open up the new one, that we just keep blowing up and blessing people where we can, and do what's best for those folks starting out or wanting their own piece of the pie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, many of these businesses, they want to start a business, they want to run their business, they want to expand their business, but they don't really have the knowledge and know-how. They don't know where to go, what to do. And that's where, we combining our resources together can assist them and get them to that place. So just remember, man, Crystal, myself, Greg Sneed is there, and even our guest that's coming up, Miss Yeshiva, she and you'll hear her speak about what she does too. She is phenomenal. As a matter of fact, I think she'll be a big asset to your area as well too. So once you get in that city council seat again, you can look at some alternative ways of solving some of those small business problems. Now, how many city council members do you guys have?
We've got a total of 4 and then 1 mayor.
Oh, okay. So that means if if there's a tie between city council members, who break the tie? The mayor?
You know, that's a very good question, man. I don't know.
Because usually there should be an odd number. There should be about 5 or 7. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's why I think you have the mayor would probably be the deciding factor. I'm not 100% sure, but I would think that would be the deciding vote for sure.
Right. Because let's say the mayor has an initiative, right? Some of the city council members don't agree with it. Then you're gonna have some agree, and let's say you have 2 that agree and 2 don't agree. Now there's a tie, there's a stalemate. So that's why there should be 5, at least 5 or 7 city council members who can break the tie. You know.
Well, even though he's the mayor, technically he's still somewhat of a council member, so he's that deciding factor. And you're talking about that right now. We currently have a Measure L, which is a 1 cent tax increase. You know, we put it for vote to the people.
1 cent or 1%?
1 cent, which is 1% of a dollar, right? For every dollar, it's a 1 cent tax.
Yeah, I hate those.
Say again?
I hate those, man.
But you know what? And you're I can agree with you, but there's more to it than just that. And I understand.
Yeah.
It's the word. Sometimes when you hear the word tax, you immediately shut down. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to tell you also that I always tell folks when I make a council decision, it's not based on council. I'm a resident first.
Yeah.
So what's going to affect you as a resident, it's going to affect me, and vice versa. Then I can make a decision, especially if you're going to talk to me, because there's folks that will get upset at you for making a choice.
Yeah.
Where are they? They'll never call you. They'll never pick up the phone. And you're supposed to keep track of them on social media. You don't have time to police social media and answer questions. Right. So you have a phone number. That's why you have an email address. You know.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying this is, again, dude, I don't like taxes at all.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, when you're inside of a city perspective, and you realize that you're losing police officers to other cities because they're paying a lot more. Yeah. Your department is almost like at the bottom of the barrel. I think we're next to the bottom of the barrel because I think we make 43 cents more an hour, our officers do, than Rialto, I think it is, or whatever. Right. That's pretty damn bad, dude. You know? Yeah. And when you're talking about 1 cent that could generate $15 million for cities, that you can improve the infrastructure, the streets, and more importantly, public safety. Yeah. That's a small thing to ask residents to think about, you know. Yeah. And the funny thing is, you have the guys leading this that's a former councilman who, he said he's got all these great ideas. Well, why did you lose your election? And why didn't you fix it when you were in office instead of kicking the can down the road? So now we're dealing with your mess. And then you look at the fact that it comes down to common sense. They're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on color ads and posters and different things against it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, when you add all that up, it's 1 cent, and you've spent thousands on something to oppose it. That really, at the end of the day, you're going to go where you wanted to shop anywhere. But now, instead of me giving it to another city on that tax, why don't you want to help your own city so we can get the results and the things that we need? You know what I mean?
That's penny wise and pound foolish. Like Greg says, common sense is not so common.
It is not.
That's really what's going on there, man.
What's the population in Upland, Carlos?
I believe I want to say either 76 or 78,000, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so that's you guys, you do need to have, you know.
Yeah, they need every penny. They need every penny.
They need to make sure that
it's you know, the whole thing is it's not like I'm, as a council, we're not mandating you this tax on you. Yeah, it's your choice. You know, all I can do is give you the facts. All I can tell you is this is why we need it. If there's no trust, then why'd you elect us in the first place? There's going to be citizens overlooking this in a committee. Mm-hmm. So again, it's not that I'm advocating or selling it here on the show, but the reality is this happens in a lot of cities, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I get that when you don't trust your council, but when you like for me, and I'm only going to speak for me, I've been transparent from day one. So now if you're going to tell me, because we're putting this on a ballot, you're going to tell me all of a sudden you don't trust me, then you need to get your ass out of your chair and get over here, take my seat, and then let's see how the tables turn.
Right,
you know?
right. So with a population of 78,000, how much CDBG fund do you guys get? The Community Development Block Grant. How much do you guys get every year?
So that's how I started at committee. doing CDBG, and I think we used to get, man, God, dude, I may be way off, but the last time I was part of that committee before I came to council, it might have been like in the 600,000s maybe or something like that.
Oh, that's a nice size. It's a nice size,
Don't
man.
quote me on it. I may be way off, but
Yeah.
I don't know why that number just rings in my head. You know what I mean?
When I was in New York, in New York, I live upstate New York in a little town called Binghamton. Population was 50,000. So the mayor would try to keep it at 50,000 or above every year. So she would go out and she'll, recruit people from New York City to come live upstate New York to keep the number, at 50,000 or more. And the amount of money she would get would be about $100,000 in our CBDG fund. So for you guys getting 600 grand, man, that's decent,
Do you have a lot of small business?
It may be less too, but I don't know why I'm thinking of that number. So
yeah. Do you have a pretty good percentage of your residents that are business owners?
Right.
I would say there's quite a bit, in my district. What I try to do it as because obviously the part of my company, my business, is do the social media marketing and all that stuff too. So what I try to implement is utilize that tool to help my local businesses in my area promote them online. Again, no strings attached. This is just, I try to do that spotlight for businesses where, like we have a printer, a cartridge company here that, man, people can get 30 to 40% off their cartridges for toners and all that stuff for everything. So why wouldn't you use that? Period.
Yeah.
Everybody just because, they don't know about it. So we've talked about this before. You don't want to be the best kept secret. You want people to know who you are. So that's what I try to do. Yeah. And that's what I try to do with my platform is utilize the tools that I already have to be able to help some of our business owners thrive and just kind of show them, hey, there's other ways for you to get, some exposure out there as well too. Because some of them are busy enough trying to stay afloat. COVID did a number on a lot of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them are just barely starting to turn the corner, trying to get back. And the last thing I want to see is just empty buildings, dude. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, our field correspondence here is giving us some on the point numbers here for the population of Upland. It says 79,274 people in that city. So it was pretty close to that 78,000. So that's good. Thank you, Mr. Correspondent, field correspondent.
Hey, Linda, how are you? And Carlos, when I was voting, when I was going through my ballot and I was doing all my research, you were the type of your philosophy, your background. That's the kind of candidate I was looking for. I need a candidate that understands the small business community. I need a candidate that understands the people on a basic level, not a grand level. Yeah, you can have political aspirations, but I think when you're going into politics and which is a place of service, then that's what you should be doing. I mean, if not, you want to make money, go make money in corporate America. That's what that's there for. But if you're running for an office, you're taking on the responsibility to care for the people in your district and make sure that they're getting the best that they can get that will take care of themselves and their family and to help elevate them from where they are and where they were and to a better place. And so I think they're all failing if they're not doing that. Now, it's so important.
Now, before we transition to our next guest, I want to make this point, Carlos. So, perhaps you can think about this while while they're re-inaugurating you for your next term. So, Crystal and I have done a lot of research, and as you know, we've been in this industry for over 20 years, a long time. I'm 30. I don't want to call out Crystal's age, so everyone knows how young she is. But, we found out that most of these organizations, entities, community redevelopment funds or economic development agencies or banks, they're trying to give loans to small businesses, Small businesses do not need any loans. They cannot afford loans. That's taken away from their cash flow. They prefer to have lines of credit. So they have access to funds. So if they need to hire someone, they can tap into that. If they need to buy materials or working capital, they can tap. They don't need loans. So the people we're talking to here, the banks and all the economic development, they're not listening to us. So perhaps you can filter that through your community and to your banks to let them know, if you want to try to help our small businesses, please make lines of credit available to them. Whether it's 50,000, 40, 50, 60,000 to start, that would be a good help for these businesses, and just let them pay it back.
Yeah, that's a great point, man, because right now, and we can talk about cybersecurity another time, but it's a lot of the emails that I'm getting is exactly that: business loans. You can qualify right now for $275,000, $300,000.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, forget the last one. We were able to get you an additional. Now you're up to like 350 or whatever.
Exactly.
And
now they're in debt.
Yeah, now they're in debt.
But
so far in debt that if we do go into recession, they're going to be devastated.
But at the end of the day, though, too, is think about that. Most people, if you're struggling, you're barely keeping your head above water when they see that there's that lifeline. Yeah. Sometimes that moment of desperation is what is gonna cost your business.
Right.
And this is why it's important that you folks, if you're listening, if you're following me on social media, that you listen to these folks, because Crystal and Gilbert, they've been around. They know, they've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to some of this stuff. They've seen businesses thrive. They've seen businesses fails. And at the end of the day, would you agree with me? It's those moments of desperation when people don't have where to turn to or who to turn to, that they end up making that crucial mistake that just ends up haunting them forever.
Right. And we can just throw this in real quickly. The pandemic that we saw back in 2020 is a big example of that, because many of these small businesses, they didn't have anywhere to turn, any alternatives. And the governor told us we can't go out and actively solicit business, so we have to stay home. So in order for these businesses to operate, they had to get some funding. And what kind of funding was available? Loans. They give us these crazy PPP loans, and there's what's the other one? Idle loan and all of that. Small business they don't need loans. They don't need loans, because many of them can't pay back right now. Many of them are bankrupt. Many of them are out of business because of those bogus loans. And you know who benefited from all of that, those loans and all of that? The banks. The banks made billions of dollars on those loans to small businesses. You see what I'm saying? So the president, from the president to governors to mayors, city council members, we just want them to recognize that strategy and that approach is not helping small business. It's killing small businesses. So make lines of credits available or some grants available for small business if you want to help them. And we'll see a difference. And educate them also. When you make lines of credit and grants available, educate them on the proper usage of those resources.
Exactly. Well, that's where the financial literacy comes in, and not just hand them a loan, which is kind of where they are. And the other people that made big money on that was the very wealthy companies that were able to get the PPP and were given total, completely 100% forgiveness. And so that was just free money for them. And they're doing extremely well right now. And on top of the fact they didn't have to pay taxes because of the former president's tax reform law. So, I mean, they made out like bandits. And of course, the people, again, got shot in the foot. And there you have it. So, but I do want everybody to know, go out and vote, because it's so very important. Your voice is your vote, and it does count. If you don't vote, then we have a problem. And
actually, if I can say, if you don't vote, don't complain, because you had every chance to also make a difference.
That's very
exactly. My field correspondent saying, "Watch out, Gilbert, they're coming after you."
make it. Well, Carlos, it's been awesome, and of course,
Don't leave us, Carlos. Stay on, because we'd like your input also.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick around. I gotta go pick up my kiddo, but I'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All righty. So we are ready. We are going to bring our guest on, and we're going to be talking about, as we said,
this is a great transition into our other guest.
Right, because along with all of this political stuff, now we're going to talk about balancing life and love and business. a little happier conversation.
well, those loans that those small businesses got really affected their relationship at home too.
Right. And so talk to our guest, and let me pull up while I'm getting her, and then we're going to bring her in, and I'm going to make her the center of the attraction. She said, all right, there we go. So Yeshiva Davis, she is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a BA in communication and a minor in both psychology and English from Framingham State University. She helps people address depression, anxiety, anger, childhood traumas, stage of life issues, family and couple relationship problems. So as you guys know, this is what our topic is for the next couple of months to the end of the year, on how do we balance relationships, our
entrepreneurship,
our business. It's like a judge, and I assume she's not going to have all of the answers, but we should be able to have a fantastic conversation on what we're supposed to be doing. So welcome, Yeshiva. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you. I am happy to be here and happy to dive into this topic. Because it's a really important one. And I was listening to your conversation with Carlos, and the thing that came to mind to me is homelessness is the symptom, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is high rent rates, low wages, and low inventory. So I think people spend money on the symptom instead of putting the money towards the problem. And that's why the homelessness rate is increasing year over year. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, which is true. It makes sense. Yeah. I mean, 1 + 1 = 2 in that case. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And even that, when we talk about healthy relationships, all of that stress of trying to live today is so difficult. And a lot of us as entrepreneurs, the reason we are entrepreneurs is because it gives us more control of how we can make our money, right? We're not limited to a 3% increase. It's based upon how we work, but that means we got to work a lot.
That means we have to work it out. A 3% increase when inflation is 4% a year, so that we're behind the 8 ball.
Still behind.
Not working for ourselves. And as an entrepreneur, I understand personally how difficult it is to balance business, love, and relationships. And I think that part of the issue is the things that make an entrepreneur successful, or the things that drive the kind of person who wants to be an entrepreneur, are also the things that can get in the way and make you difficult to be in a relationship with, right? Yeah, so for me, and I think for other entrepreneurs too, I can get singularly focused. I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. I can spend, 6 hours. I haven't eaten. I do drink my water though. I haven't eaten. And, the next thing I know, I'm missing calls from my mom. I'm missing calls from my boyfriend. I'm missing calls from my niece. Yeah. And they don't like that. People don't like to be ignored. They like to feel like they're important to you. And when you ignore them, then it kicks up problems in the relationship.
Right. So, now, as a therapist, Yeshiva, I'm sure you've had people walk into your office who turn out to be entrepreneurs, and they're going through certain types of issues and challenges. And what are some of the what are some of the most common, and you don't have to name names or anything, this is all confidential and all of that. So what are some of the challenges that they name as being something that's getting in the way of them having a good relationship at home, and then having that relationship with their business?
Well, I think one of the major things is time, and the partner not feeling as if they're getting enough, and the relationship then stalls.
Right.
Because in order for it to grow, you need to spend time, you need to talk, you need to create what's called love maps. And a lot of that is not happening if the entrepreneur is working 15 hours a week and then goes home and then works a couple more hours. So that's one of the biggest issues. And what I like to tell folks who come into the office is, we plan and make strategies for everything else. Like, we have our business plan, we have our forecast, we have our communications and marketing plan, sales, and all of that. So we do it for business. It's really important to do the same kind of thing for your relationship. So you need to have a plan for it. You need to communicate with your partner and say, hey, here's where we're going to do our date nights. Here's where I'm working on a project. And so I'm going to be gone for a week. I'm going dark for a week. But the following week, then you and I can spend a Tuesday and Wednesday together to kind of reconnect and make sure that our relationship is also a priority. Because for entrepreneurs, a lot of times the business can become the only priority. And that is no bueno for your relationship and your partner. They are not going to be cool with that.
So that means communication and effective not just communication, but effective communication is a key component of that as well, right?
Effective communication, meaning as someone in a relationship, being open to hearing what the other person has to say and listening to respond as opposed to listening to react.
Right.
So a lot of times when we're talking to people and we're having a heated conversation, all we're thinking about is what we're going to say next. And we don't hear what the other person said.
Yeah. You're not even focused on hearing what the other person said, right?
No, you just want to one up the other person, and you're trying to win the argument. When the reality is, if you're at each other's throats, no one's winning.
Right.
So the win is, I heard you, you heard me, we understand each other. Now let's come up with a plan so that this kind of thing doesn't happen again in the future.
I'm not trying to pit the two groups against each other, but who do you find when in therapy, who do you find listen more to respond versus listen to react?
Men or women? Who listens to respond? You know what? It's really more about the person's history and how they grew up and what their models were versus men over women.
Right.
So if you grew up in a place with a lot of yelling or people weren't listening to each other, then listening for what? Like, I'm just trying to get my point across. That's not what we do when we're communicating.
Right.
Based on my involvement with these types of folks, what I realize that women do that more than men. They listen to react and respond instead of listening to understand and then trying to work things out. They just want, well, I feel this. This is what I feel. I feel like this, and that's all you're hearing instead of dealing with the issue itself. So, and that's just my unofficial
that's your personal experience.
Yes. So I just wanted to know, as a therapist, how you saw it. So,
but go ahead, Crystal. I'm sorry.
But I would also think that could be a trigger, right? I mean, well, first of all, we're a product of all of our experiences.
Yes.
So if we've never had one, as you said, if we've never had a role model on how to effectively listen, but at the same time, we've been in relationships that we've been talked over, and our feelings and our emotions have been overlooked, then if we don't get that solved, we don't go to a you, right? And then have you help me determine that, wait, this is from a past relationship. This is not from
Yeah.
this relationship, that I'm never going to fix that. Right. So when we get into an argument, my thing is, oh, that's that dude last time. That last dude did that to me. And now
Emotional damage.
Yeah. The last dude did it, or you're kicking up some old feelings because your dad walked out on you and you have issues with abandonment and you don't know that. And it shows up as, anger or frustration or sadness,
Yeah.
Rhonda said unofficial Gilbert.
Right. But I like what Greg says is that if you learn how to function in a working relationship at a younger age. So, and I don't know if we're taught that as teenagers, right? Like when we first get into dating at 15 or 16 years old, our parents are talking to us about safety. And if you're a girl, you got one conversation. If you're a boy, you have another conversation. But are there any way, how do you prepare a young person to date healthy so that when it comes to the future, they don't carry all of this baggage along with them?
Right. I think the preparation starts before dating age. I think the preparation starts when you're 3 and 4 and you start becoming verbal. Right. And your parents are teaching you, this is how you express yourself. Oh, look, you're acting out. You're having this tantrum. Well, that's not what we do. Let's talk about how you're feeling. Let me show you something else that you can do besides screaming and crying to calm yourself down, because that's really the point of it a lot of times. I'm 4. I don't know how to soothe myself. And this is the only way. So as adults, if we start teaching kids that early, and they're using it throughout their lives, then by the time they get 16 and they're ready to date, they've already got those skills under their belt.
I've always believed that people in relationship, whether they're married or not married, should always see a counselor or a therapist. You see what I'm saying? Because this really helps people to better understand several things. Why they think a certain way, why they behave a certain way, when they listen to you, what they're hearing instead of what you're saying. Because some people hear some stuff you're not even saying, and you go, how did you get that out of what I just said? So that's another thing. Now, Greg had a question.
You on the road with me, Gilbert.
That's what I'm talking about. Just remember, I had a little background in counseling in grad school. So now, Greg had a question, which I think is very interesting. He said, which is tougher to replace, the business or the spouse? What do you think? That's a good one, right?
It depends on how well your business is doing and how well you get along with your spouse.
But here's the thing. I know as an entrepreneur, and I've been in business for over 30 years, and I have a relationship here and there. Never been married, mainly because my focus is always on my business, and then I always have multiple businesses, so I'm not just doing one thing. So when I meet a guy, and when I first started my business, everyone that I knew was working a 9-to-5 job, right? So an entrepreneur is a whole different animal. You don't understand. They wasn't understanding nothing about me. My late night work hours, my focused on building my business, the networking that you have. They weren't for none of that. They're like, why can't you just stop working at 5 o'clock? What's the problem here?
Why are you working on Saturday? Why are you working?
Yeah, exactly. I had that question asked to me one time where I was going to this event. It's like an outreach event on a Sunday. And my partner at the time, she said, why are you going on a Sunday? Nobody does networking on a Sunday. I know you're going somewhere else. I'm going, where else am I going? Do you want to come with me? No, I don't want to come. I just know you're going somewhere bad. I'm going, oh my Lord. And those are things that entrepreneurs have to deal with sometimes. Now think about this. That entrepreneur, could be me or somebody else at that time, hearing that kind of thing. On their mind, they might be thinking, you know what? I have my 10 employees that I got to make sure I make payroll for this coming Friday. And I got to go do some things, try to leverage some funds so that they can get it. and this person's yelling at me here about, what I need to do. That's one of the times when the entrepreneur will probably choose the business over the partner. You see what I'm saying? Because not paying your employees is a state violation. That's a criminal act. You can go to prison for not paying your employees. You see what I mean? So I don't know, man.
I think in these relationships, like when you're in a relationship with an entrepreneur, what's so very important is to almost over communicate and also to be very mindful that dating an entrepreneur or being married to an entrepreneur is very difficult.
Yeah,
because people do want to spend time with you, and it's important to empathize,
right,
and to hear people out, even if you don't necessarily agree,
right?
Because working 12, 14-hour days when you're in a relationship with someone is super hard. I think if you have the opportunity, it's nice to choose someone who understands an entrepreneur's life.
Right.
So when you get into a relationship, they get it.
You're getting some love. You're getting some love here in the chat. We got Candice from All That and More saying, "Hey, Yeshiva, how you doing?"
Hey, Candice.
And then we got Linda Sam saying, "Hey, how you guys doing? Video connect is perfect for therapy."
Yeah.
So,
now Linda made a couple of statements. She said she feels that a therapist should be a necessary part of your budget, your family budget, especially.
Oh, for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And Linda has a program. She does a podcast as well, where it's all about married couples. She recently married a couple years ago, and so that she realized that marriage is tough, and she's an entrepreneur, and I believe her husband's an entrepreneur, and Candace, she's an entrepreneur, and her husband works with her, and that's some of what I have found is when I've had a mate that was in somewhat the same field, or we did some work together, for a while that was good. We had a common ground, we had a common conversation that we could have. But of course, when it broke up, there was a whole different ballgame. But but I will say this, and this is something that I've, as I've been in business for a long time, and Yeshiva, your input is great. Great for this is having a balanced home life, where if I'm working all of it, someone just said, "Baby, you need to stop. We need to, let's go on a vacation." That's important to our self-care and our health, right?
It's critical. It's critical. That's why I think couples in general, but particularly couples who have an entrepreneur as one member, need to have like a couple's business plan. When are your vacations scheduled?
That's a good point right there.
Sit down and talk, because so much time can go by, things can happen, problems can show up, and you don't talk about it. It festers, it stews. You're not talking to somebody for 3 days, and people are giving the cold shoulder.
Yeah.
If
I went through all of those things you're talking about, Yeshiva. All of those. I've been in my house for like 3 weeks, passing my partner back and forth. We're not saying hi to nobody. It's like, come on, it's like we're strangers in this house. It's tough.
Yeah, and like emotionally, that's really taxing. Spiritually, that's taxing. It's also taxing to the relationship and to the business, because it prevents you from being grounded and balanced, which is where you do your best work.
Right.
Back to this plan. It's like, when we have a fight, how are we going to handle it? What are we going to do?
Exactly. I love that. See, and these are things, if we both parties go to a therapist or a counselor, we can establish those things up front so we understand how to fight,
Or learn tools.
Learn tools, right? You understand how to fight, but you also in therapy get to learn the other person and what their childhood wounds and issues are, and what you shouldn't say and where you shouldn't go when you're having arguments.
Right. And somebody here says, and an exit strategy. So have an exit strategy.
That's actually Candace.
The argument.
Have an exit strategy to the argument, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
I agree. for sure.
Yeah. And what about a tool that can help like balance it out, diffuse the whole space, right? Like, some tools to say, okay, look, we need to talk, whether and understanding how your mate responds. Do I need to send you a letter? Do I need to leave you a message on your on your phone? How will hear me? So and we hammer. Greg says a hammer.
There's this type of couples therapy that's called Imago. It's IMAGO. And their strategy is when there's an issue that comes up, one of the people in the couple says, hey, I need to have a conversation. Is this a good time? Because if somebody's pissed off, it is not a good time to talk. You need to let them cool off. And the person says yes or no. If they say no, then the next thing to do is, when are we going to talk? Like, so let's schedule a time. So the person asking isn't like, well, I don't know when we're going to talk, and I'm over here upset too. So you say next Tuesday at 3. And then it starts kind of like a warm lead-in. So you use I statements. You don't talk about the other person. You did this and you're tired of this. That's not, nobody's going to do well with that. That's not going to lead to a good conversation. So it's more like, I'm feeling upset when that happened. Right. And then in this particular way of communicating, there's some mirroring and reflecting, which means you say what you heard to the other person, because to Gilbert's point, sometimes what someone says to you is not what you hear.
Exactly.
And that's not on purpose. That's usually because there's some sort of filter through which the message is coming, whether that's a childhood trauma, whether that's a previous relationship, one of those kinds of things. And so when you mirror something back, then the person can say to you, yeah, you got that right. Or nah, that's not what I said. I didn't say that. And then the person tries again. And so what these kind of tactics do is they slow the conversation down. So people are less likely to kind of pop off and say mean things, because you really have to listen and think about what the other person is saying. And one of the best things to bring into, and this one's hard, y'all, I'm not gonna lie, this one's hard. One of the best things to bring into conflict or an argument is empathy. If you can find a way to understand where your partner is coming from when they're sharing their sadness, their frustration with you, then it helps to foster an established connection, which means you're more likely to resolve the issue.
Right. Now, we've got a few things going on here, Yeshiva, and you are just stirring the pot real nicely here. Folks are loving what they're hearing from you. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is Imago. What does that mean? IMAGO, what it means? Because Greg thinks it means I'm a go. I'm a go. I don't want to hear this anymore. I'm a go.
Let me see. I don't know if Imago stands for anything. I think it's a kind of relationship therapy that was developed in the 80s, I think.
Right.
By some Harville.
Okay.
And he created this whole system for conducting couples therapy. And these interventions are interventions that are used in other kinds of therapy, but also specific to his too.
Linda Sam, one of our favorite listeners and supporters here, said, Imago or Imago, I don't know what how you pronounce it, says it is a Latin word for image.
Okay.
It says deep down each of us carries a picture of what we think love is supposed to look like and what it's supposed to sound like and what it's supposed to feel like. We bring that vision and those expectations to our committed relationships, but they don't always serve us well. So that's what Imago is. So thank you, Linda. Thank you for that.
And it's interesting that thank you, Linda, because I watch, and I don't know if anybody else watches the show. I watch a show called Married at First Sight. And I love Married at First Sight. It irritates me the hell out of me sometimes. But the couples this is exactly what happens to them, right? They have this image of what marriage looks like, what it sounds like, and how it's supposed to go. Like if it's a spin, it's an accelerated process. So in 8 weeks, I'm sort of I'm marrying you sight unseen. I guess by the end of the 8 weeks, they're under the impression that you're supposed to know everything about me, and you should be able to say within 3 days that you love me. How?
That's not how that works.
It might take some people. It take 2 years to fall in love.
Right.
But that's a big thing about them. All right, you go and show your wife some love. Tell her we said hello, Greg.
Oh, he's leaving.
But that's Faye just got home. But that's a big thing in that particular scenario. Being able to get that man to say, before I decide I'm gonna commit to you, that I love you. But you don't want anybody to, in my opinion, you don't want anyone to say they love you when they first meet you, because you know nothing about me. Exactly. You don't know what makes me tick. You don't know what excites me. You don't know what hurts me to my core. You really, truly, I think in a relationship, you have to, it takes time, right?
Yeah. It does
takes
take
time to develop, and it's stages, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I think that, so I believe in love at first sight, but I believe in love at first sight. And then you take time to get to know the person to see if you still love them once you know them. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's really important, right? So I think some people, I'm not a love at first sight person.
Right.
But I think I'm a love at next year person. But but there are a lot of people who fall very quickly and fall very deeply. Right. There's something that you said that made me think about love languages. And I think it's so important for people to realize that their partner has to be loved in a way that makes them feel loved, as opposed to the way the partner gives love. So if my love language is acts of service, and I like people to, the thing that makes me feel loved is, oh, you went to the grocery store and picked some things up for me, or, oh, you helped me with chopping some wood. I don't know. And that's what makes me feel loved. And my partner is giving me gifts, and there's these beautiful, extravagant gifts. They're great. I like them, but I don't really feel loved by that. So it's so very important for people to understand what makes their partner feel loved, and to do as much of that as possible.
Go ahead, Crystal.
I think that's a good place to start, is asking that person, especially when someone's coming into your life, what is your love language? What really makes you happy? How should I interact with you? Because other than that, you're guessing at it. I don't, right? And like you said, if I'm of service, just having you go pick up my car. Or I remember I broke with a guy, and it was a series of things, but this one was like the deal breaker right here was, my car had broken down and I had to move it from one place to the other. And so he's standing there watching while myself and the neighbor are moving the car, and my sister are moving the car. It's like, okay, so why are you here?
What's your purpose again?
What's your purpose? Why am I pushing a 10-ton car and you standing over watching? Okay.
Where's that safety, security, and protection in my man? Where's that?
In the glove compartment. That's where it is.
So
that was a major, like, whoa, okay. I think this relationship has come to an end.
So one of our co-counselor business coaches here, Rhonda Halbert, she says, having counseling on the calendar when times are good takes attention off the meeting when you go. And you are not going to just do it because there's a problem. You know that there's something on the calendar that remind you or keep it in your mind that those things are going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good, I think that's a good suggestion, Rhonda.
Yeah.
Very good one.
Because therapy is not just about resolving problems.
Yeah.
Therapy is about creating the kind of relationship that makes both of you happy.
Right.
Therapy is about learning new and different ways to engage and communicate and live and have fun, because a lot of us are just limited to whatever we learned about growing up in our childhood and what we saw on TV.
Right.
So,
and then when you have those meetings scheduled on the calendar, when times are good, okay, times are good. We don't have any issues going on right now, but we're going to have this meeting. So we're going to talk about some things. Talk about, okay, over the last few weeks, we discussed that we're both going to do these types of things. Now, what are your take on it? Here's my take on it, and kind of share notes and all of that. So then when you have to meet again for something that's kind of troublesome, it doesn't seem like that much of an issue. To do it.
And a lot of times when things are good and you're talking about it, you're reinforcing those things. So whatever things you're saying and doing while times are good, let's keep doing that.
Yes.
Right? Let's focus on the good so we can do more of the good.
Right.
And I would think also, when you had to have some tough conversations, if you've been in if you have those tough conversations in therapy where it's a safe place to do so, then you can learn how to develop those listening skills, not to take stuff personal, and really be able to get there deeper, right? Because I think a lot of us, if we're going to have that tough conversation, you're not quite sure how to deliver that tough conversation. You're not quite sure how they're going to receive it. And then if they start to get a little irritated, then you pull back and then, right?
Yeah. And the benefit of having a therapist in the room with you is sometimes what I will do is when the conversation gets too heated, I will have the members of the couple talk through me. And so they say what they have to say, and then I translate it in a way that can land well with the other partner, and then ask if that was right. And that serves to model the way to be able to say something to your partner so they don't get upset. But it also allows them to be able to have their voice and their feelings heard.
That's excellent.
And then eventually I step out so they can have those conversations.
And then they can have that. And I think as entrepreneurs, that's a big issue for us, right? Because, both men and women, so especially a female, I think if we're in a type of business that requires us to take on some masculine energy or to be more alpha in order to run our businesses, right? Then we need to learn how to, I think as a woman, to be able to, how do you leave that at the office? Because there has to be some sort of submission going on so that he feels that he is in his position. And I'm one of those that feel that women have a position and men have a position in a relationship. I don't think I think there's a very distinctive male energy and a very distinctive female energy. And you have to be in alignment to make it work. That's
feminine and masculine energy is a real thing. I worked with this couple who the wife was a CEO, and she would come home and her husband was like, "You are not a CEO here. You need to put that hat down."
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. A lot of people, they don't know when to adjust to their environments.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the interventions that we did, once we realized this is an issue, here are the kinds of problem it causes, and she decided, I want to make changes to how I'm engaging with you, is she would come home and then do something like put on an apron. And that was her reminder, like, I'm at home. I'm not CEO here. And so it doesn't have to be an apron. She just chose an apron, but it can be anything. And those kinds of visual cues and behavior can actually help your brain to remember, like, nope, I'm not at work here. I'm not in charge here. My job here is to be a partner and a parent. So I need to get into that mode.
And that helps an entrepreneur too, when they're home with their spouse or partner or even family, to adjust to that environment and operate the way they ought to in that environment, as opposed to when they're at work, delegating and giving
orders and
and
receiving
instructions
that he's your employee, or you can't do it right because let me just get out the way. I'll just take care of it. Right.
I mean, it's good enough for Superman and it's good enough for Spider-Man. They change clothes too. What is it, Clark Kent and Superman?
Right. Change clothes. So that I think I like that, putting on an apron to kind of step out of that commanding role and step back into a supportive role as the actual wife in it, so he won't feel threatened, because a lot of time, and I know for myself and some of my friends that are here on that have been chit-chatting, we're all pretty alpha. Most of my girlfriends are pretty alpha. and so we have to learn. It's like I have to learn. I was on a date recently. I had to learn to sit in the car and wait for him to come open the door. Man, was that
because
hard.
the alpha in you to step right out and go, okay, I'm out. Let's go.
Let him get out. I had to wait for him to get out the car. It's like, okay, just sit here, look in your purse, adjust your whatever, all these things you need to do, and just like. But I loved it because even when we would go to a valet and he'd get out and he's going to pay the valet, he says, "Go over and open the door for her." It's like,
you see how empowering that is, Crystal. A lot of women, because they're in that boss mode. They're not. They totally ignore all of that because they want to do things themselves, and that's what you guys said earlier. That in a relationship, there are certain roles for the man, certain roles for the woman, and that's the role that. Because my mom taught me this when I was young, when I was 10, 11. That when you're in a relationship with a woman, if you're walking on the street, you walk at the end of the sidewalk. She stays on the inside towards the wall or the fence, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you take her someplace, you open the door for her. If you're in a car, you open the door, let her get out. Then, you never let her get out without you opening the door, But you know what I noticed, though? So the other day I went to the UPS store, right? There was a woman in front of me, very close in front of me, right? And she opened the door. She went in, and she didn't hold the door for me at all. She didn't hold it so I can get it. She just let it go and it slammed right in front of my face. I'm going, I can't believe this woman. I can't believe this. But as a man, we're conditioned that, hey, if you're going through a door, whether it's a woman or anyone else behind you, you hold that door open for them. But a lot of our women, they're not conditioned to do that.
I think the other thing is we may have more traditional values, right?
Yeah.
There are some women who
Yeah,
are like, my own dang
yeah,
door.
yeah. The modern women,
I'll pay my own valet or whatever the issue is. So I think it's important to understand that there's masculine energy, there's feminine energy, but there may be a man who has more feminine energy than masculine, and he may pair up really well with a woman who has a lot of masculine energy.
Linda says, working from home during the shutdown helped us married couples to really get in touch with our different roles. And then Rhonda says, it does not take long to get back in the mode of allowing the man to have chivalry. You should open the doors even if she's the driver. And Linda says, because you have to say, let me get that. Right. You have to I know for me, because there are big gaps between me and relationships. I go into my own self-therapy. When I was younger and I'd end a relationship, and my girlfriends would go, okay, she's getting ready to go into self-help therapy. So I'd be buying all the books and reading through, and by the time I treated myself in 2 years, I was ready for another relationship. But then I'd have to get back into a mode. It's like, okay, now how do I behave?
So in between relationship, it kind of give you that you start developing that more masculine energy, huh? So then when the next one
care of yourself,
when the next one comes around, it's kind of different to make that transition, right?
It's a conscious thought process.
And it's amazing that we're talking about this right now, because these things happen in relationship in a personal level, but a lot of this carries back and forth through the business relationship and the home relationship.
Yep. Yeah.
So this is great, man. There's some points in the chat here. Folks, I put a statement that you guys want to check out. It said, when you're in a relationship, business or personal, you must listen to understand, not listen to react or respond. Okay. So that's a statement made by our official therapist here. That's Miss Yeshiva. And then your unofficial therapist, Gilbert. Gilbert said the same thing. So I endorse what the official therapist said. Okay.
So I'm going to ask Yeshiva this because she's single as well. So how do you have to create that balance and have to use some of your own therapeutic therapies in order to navigate through relationships?
Yep. I use the same before I prescribe an intervention for someone. I make sure I use it on myself first because I want to know what it feels like and I want to know if it works and I want to know if I have to tweak it. So I have date nights on my calendar, right? I know that, there's a certain day of the week and a certain time that we have to sit down and talk, whether or not there's a problem or an issue. And it really helps. I also know that it's really important. They're called love maps, right? But it's really important to develop love maps so that I can know the details of his days and he can know the details of my days, because that's what fosters connection.
Right.
What's a love map?
A love map is essentially knowing the little itty bitty small details. Like, let me tell you what happened about this lady at Ralph's today. Let me tell you what she did. She was behind me and she was talking all loud. Those kinds of things, like those little tiny things that we take for granted, are the things that really help you to get to know your partner and continue to know your partner over time, because we know we grow and develop. And so when you know that kind of thing about someone, it makes you closer to them. It makes you
right.
Okay.
There's this other sort of couples therapy guru, married couple called the Gottmans, Gottmans. And I'm Gottman trained. I love them. And Love Maps is part of what they have called a sound relationship house. And it's essentially the things you need to have in a relationship in order for it to flourish. And I think the sound relationship house, there's some of the elements that could work in a business relationship, an entrepreneur business relationship, but it definitely works really well in a romantic relationship or a marriage.
And what Gottman? And what are some of those things
my goodness.
There's a few of them. Doesn't have to be.
Ooh. So there's the love maps. What else?
So Linda is providing us some
shared meanings. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead and say.
Shared meetings. Okay.
Create love maps, creating shared meetings. Let me see. I can't remember them.
Okay. Yeah. I know for me, because everything has to operate on a calendar for me. So I when I meet someone and they're like, okay, you seem to be super busy based upon what you do. And so I have to make sure I articulate very succinctly that this is where I am right now, creating a space to bring love into my life. So if that means I have to calendar everything to make sure that I block that time out for you, that is what my goal is to make sure that you're inclusive in this picture and not exclusive, or I'm just not throwing you extra time that maybe a client canceled or what have you, and I'm like, oh, as a second thought, hey, I got time for you now. I'm actually making sure it's a priority.
As a matter of fact, Crystal, I think that's a great idea to calendar stuff, because as business people, we calendar our meetings with our clients, calendar activities, events, and all of that. And that stands out in our mind. It's important, right? So it's the same thing with our partners. If we calendar things, that we're going to do with them, Because then if a client say, hey, can I meet with you at 5:30 or at 6? He said, oh, no, I already got something scheduled on my calendar. If it wasn't on the calendar, you go, oh, yeah, sure. Then when you get home, you get in this big old fight. Well, you don't put me first at all, because I've heard those things all the time.
Sure. I think a lot of the things that people do in their business and work to make it run smoothly are the same things you can do in your relationship.
Business, right.
We talked about the business plan. You can have a relationship plan.
Yeah.
And so same things.
Linda said, love map as that part of your brain where you store all the relevant information about your partner's life. Having a detailed love map involves taking a genuine interest in your partner.
Yep. Asking questions. So the love map is part of the sound relationship house. And so there's building love maps, there's creating shared meetings, there's making life's dreams come true. There's managing conflict and turning towards. There's one more. And turning towards is when a partner says to you, oh, look at this cute little dog video on Instagram. Instead of being like, I don't want to see that. I'm tired of that. You take the time to go over and look at the dog video and see what is interesting to your partner. That's called
so even if you don't give a crap about it, you just should go over there and look at it and just make that person feel like you care about what they're talking about. Correct?
Well, you try to understand what is exciting about that to them.
Yeah.
And for most folks, if someone that you love is interested in or excited about that, there's some positive feeling that you have because you love them.
Yeah. That's good.
And I think also another thing that's very important to me is developing a friendship before I'm actually at that love place, right? Yeah. And I would do that with my friend. I would want to be interested, and I would listen to all their stories and everything that they were interested in, and vice versa. So why would we not want to do that with someone that we're potentially going to fall in love with? Right? Why is there such a succinctly difference between how you develop a relationship with a friend and how you develop a relationship with a potential mate?
Because love and sexual attraction makes us get involved in activities before we should in some cases. Right? My idea of the best foundation for a relationship is someone that you like to hang out with and kick it with. Then you also like to have sex with them. Like that's just that's the best. Best scenario. Because if you once the feelings are there, you move on the feelings, and there's this what's it called, oxytocin, kind of like the love drug. Once the love drug kicks in, you start making all kinds of decisions that you might not otherwise make had you not. You can overlook some things.
It's called a love drug, huh?
Yeah. And
it's the love hormone. It's released when you have sex. It's released when moms and when women have babies.
Okay. And that's when you jump past that, and because with a friend you could have an argument and it's not the end of the world, right? You're not gonna go, okay, I'm gone, I'm out of here, right? You're like, okay, I may be pissed at you for a few minutes, give me a moment, and then I'll be back, right? And you feel comfortable saying and speaking your mind
because it's
with
your friend.
Right. But when it's your mate, you're like, oh, you said that to me, I'm out of here, I'm never coming back.
Emotions are picked up.
I can't believe you hurt my feeling like that. You disrespected me.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, Gilbert. Can I say something about feelings?
Yes.
A couple things. So one thing is we like to vilify certain feelings, right?
Yes.
Like anger, frustration, jealousy.
Yeah.
Right. Or don't say hate. at least where I grew up, you say hate, that's like a curse word, you know?
Right, exactly. Yes.
But I like to offer a reframe for that, because those feelings are just as important and as valuable and need to be expressed as happiness and joy. The thing that I think people get caught up with the feelings that get vilified is how people respond to hate, how they respond to anger. That part might be a little shady. That part might not be right, but the feelings themselves are valid and important and need to be appreciated and accepted and discussed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's and then the other part I like to say is that feelings aren't one or the other, right? People have what I call feeling soup. You can be really scared about something and very happy about it. And so we don't have these feelings in silos. They kind of weave together. And I think a lot of times we struggle with that, and we kind of shut down or dismiss a certain feeling, and that's really harmful.
So when one person feels like their feelings is being dismissed is when they really get, bothered by that and feel like, hey, you need to listen to this. What I'm saying here is very important. No, it's not. It's not that important.
And so how I would reframe what you said is, I would say, I need you to listen to me. It's important that you know what I think.
Right.
It's important that you know how I'm feeling. And
understand.
That will land in the other person's lap a lot easier than saying, hey, you did this, you did that.
Right. And I always throw in the word please in there just to take away that aggressive tone, because when you say, you really need to listen. What? I don't need to listen to nothing you're saying. But can you please just listen to this? Oh, okay. You disarm them a little bit, right?
Rhonda says, because if not, you'll throw out the whole calendar out
the window. Exactly.
You'll delete the calendar, rip it up.
Man, this is such a great session, man. I'm loving this. Counselor Yeshiva.
Yeah, and essentially, when we look at in our own business, communication is major in our business. Right? As entrepreneurs. That is, I think, besides being creative, because creativity plays a big part in being an entrepreneur, having really great communication skills is how we engage and be able to retain our customers. But somehow along the line, when it gets to the personal, we like, I don't have no communication.
I'm tired. I'm tired of having communication.
I do not want to communicate.
Why gotta communicate at home?
It's Wednesday night at 10 o'clock. I don't have time for this.
I don't have the capacity for it. I think the two things that can make or break a business relationship or a personal romantic relationship is the ability to communicate well and the ability to manage your feelings. Self-regulation is, if you can self-regulate and you can communicate well, you can do just about anything. Those two things. And emotional regulation is the foundation for being able to communicate well, because usually if people are arguing or yelling and screaming at each other, it's because they're not able to manage how they're feeling.
Right.
So you can get emotional regulation down, you can do a lot of things.
And then learning to how to manage your emotional IQ. I think as you grow, I mean, especially you really have to work on that, I believe, in relationships, because we all are triggered by, as we said at the top of this conversation, triggered by things from our past, and we never learned how to really work through those things. So being able to develop and expand your emotional IQ, I think, is vitally important in this process.
Right.
True.
Now,
you've been awesome.
I know she's been phenomenal, man. That's why we got to invite her back. Now, in relationships, entrepreneurship, and love, one of the things that really gets tied up into this whole thing, and it really affects the entrepreneur and it affects the partner or the spouse.
I am having trouble hearing you, Gilbert.
Yeah, all of a sudden his
You're breaking in and out.
It went in and out, and you're talking fast again. But what I think
can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's something going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
It speeded up like it did before. Check the audio signals.
All right. Tell me if I'm speaking too fast right now.
That's better.
That's better.
Okay. So one of the things that I was saying that really affect the entrepreneurship part and the personal part is the fact that the entrepreneur doesn't usually feel supported, like they're supported by their partner or their spouse, and the spouse feels the same way, like they're not being supported by the entrepreneur. So can you address that part for us, Yeshiva? Counselor Yeshiva?
Sure. I think it really comes down to people feeling like their needs are heard and met, and heard more than met. So if both people in the relationship aren't feeling like their needs are being met, they're not being listened to, then it's time to have a conversation and to say, here's what I need, here's what's missing. Like, this is going to make me feel like I'm more connected to you and we're in a healthy relationship and I'm a part of what you do, as opposed to me being on the outside.
Right.
But
I like that. I like that right there. Can you say it again? Can you say it again, please? I love what you said right there.
He goes, no. She was in the moment, Gilbert.
She was in the moment, man.
Essentially, listening to your partner's needs and the partner feeling heard helps to diffuse them feeling like they're on the outside. And listening to what they need, and then, honoring that and validating that. You might not be able to change it, but honoring and validating that and trying to make some accommodations for it, because that's the thing that makes people feel more connected. And that's also the thing that makes people say, oh, well, I know he's working late, but he said these other things, and so I feel okay about it. I know he's not ignoring me. I know I still matter to him because of this conversation that we had yesterday.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
And what do you think? Because in this new modern age, people tend to forget vocal conversations and do texting instead, which I think loses a lot and can affect your communication skills, right?
Sure. I think that texting is for quick messaging. Texting is not for long, heartfelt, meaningful conversations. Texting is not for disagreements. Texting is, hey, do you want turkey or chicken? I'm in traffic and I'm gonna be late. Or can you pick up John because I can't pick him up? Like, that's what texting is for.
Okay.
I think that there are a lot of people who have a lot of challenges with having live and in-person conversations, and so they fall back on texting. I think texting is better than not saying anything at all, but live conversations should definitely be the go-to from my perspective.
Okay, so as an accent, not to the main course of how you're communicating.
Like, you don't need to be on your phone texting for an hour trying to figure out why you had why a certain fight happened.
And you can't get the emotional connection. I have a girlfriend, her every man she's ever been with, they're all in tech world and they text everything. I told her, I said, I don't know how you have long, meaningful conversations with somebody texting. First of all, I get tired of texting. Past 10 words, I'm on the phone. What did you mean?
The other thing about communication is most of it is nonverbal. 90% of it's nonverbal.
Yes.
Right. So the words are such a small percent. So you're missing out on so much when you're not talking and you can't see someone's face or at least hear the different inflections in their voice.
Right.
Yeah. That's a brief conversation that you don't kind of work out your life map or your love map in a text.
Yes.
This has been awesome. You have kicked it off. So now, we're going to have in the next couple weeks, we got a couple single ladies coming in to talk about their experiences with dating in this new world order that we live in, and trying to find that person. And then we have several married couples that work together and have worked together. And so we're going to have conversations with them. You have just brought so much value to this because I do think it's very important as an entrepreneur that we do create this life balance, that we have to have this life balance. It's so important.
This is great.
It's critical.
Rhonda has a statement. She said, when it's part 2, I want to bring the guy. Rhonda, we're going to do this every Friday for as long as our audience demands it. So next week, we're going to have another episode. And who are we bringing in, Crystal, as our guest? Is that a couple that we're bringing in?
Yeah, actually, I think I'm trying to get one of our single ladies next week.
Okay, so
the two of them. I have 2 identified, and then I have a couple of married couples that's going to be coming in at the end of the month.
Is she an entrepreneur? The person that's coming in next week? Okay,
all of them are entrepreneurs.
So, and then we'll have a guy at some point. We're hoping Carlos was going to be that guy, but he jumped off.
He jumped off quick.
Carlos jumped off quick.
Carlos said he's in the city council mode. He can't be talking about no love and business and all that stuff. He running for an office, Gilbert. What are you talking about? But we'd love to have a guy because
you want to get his perspective.
Has a different perspective. And I think men need love just as much as women do.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And
Yes.
I think it's kind of have you found in your practice that, having them be that vulnerable to saying that's what their needs are? Is that a difficult thing for the men that you've counseled?
If it's in couples therapy, yes. If it's one-on-one with me, not really.
Oh, okay.
Because, and I think it's just because I try really hard to make it safe to say whatever you need to say. So you're not going to hear, oh, you're a punk, you're crying, or you're not going to hear any of that from me. And in fact, I encourage people to cry. And here's the science reason why you should cry. Yeah. Right? It releases toxins and
helps you tap in.
Digest part of your nervous system, so it calms you down. So yes, you should cry. So they're pretty good. I mean, there are a couple folks who are tough.
Okay. Well, you've been awesome.
So Carlos said LOL.
We are so appreciative that you came to be to speak on this subject. I mean, Gilbert and I, like I said, this became something that was interesting to both of us, and we felt that our entrepreneur community would feel that same way. And obviously, with all of the nice input, Linda, thank you so much for your input. Linda, can you put in Can you put in the name of your podcast? Are you still doing your podcast and what you're doing so that we can share?
This has definitely been a good. And for those of you who are just tuning in, folks, this is an amazing conversation. This is what my co-host and I, Crystal Mitchell, Coach Crystal Mitchell, and myself, Coach Gilbert Buchanan. This is what we dreamed of, to have this kind of conversation, this type of communication about entrepreneurship, relationship, and love, because we've been dealing with this for years. We're dealing with this for years and years and years, and we always want to bring it to the forefront, but we wanted to have the right platform, and this has been perfect. Counselor Yeshiva, you've been phenomenal, man. This is great.
I had a really good time. I really invite. I'll be back if you invite me.
For sure. For sure. Maybe around the holidays when people stuff on not trying to get through the holidays and be alone, and I know that's much more intensified since we came through the pandemic. Before we leave, though, I would like you to talk about that a little bit on how where people were after the pandemic.
I think at least what I saw in the industry and in particular in my practice is that people were disconnected and lonely and anxious and depressed.
Mhm.
And during the pandemic, our practice filled up so quickly that we ended up having a waiting list, and we still have a waiting list because people are still working on and recovering from being disconnected from other humans, and not knowing what's going to happen next,
Yeah.
which was driving all this anxiety, like what's happening with our with the politicians, and what's happening with money and work, and what's going to happen with my family member who had COVID, and these vaccinations that have to be considered. So all of the unknown was really causing a lot of discomfort and anxiety for folks. And people are still working their way through that. Like, it's not something that you can just snap your finger, oh, okay, now we can go outside a little bit with some care and it's all over. It's not. People are still struggling.
Okay. Yeah, I hear it sometimes. A lot of anxiety when I am coaching with my entrepreneurs. It's like there's some pieces that are missing, and they're still having difficulty adjusting to interacting with people and just being alone. I mean, it was very scary, right? Because you could have died and nobody would have known that. So human connection is, I believe, just as important as eating and sleeping.
It is. It is. And science tells us it is too. Yep.
I think a lot of us we proved and we realized that during the pandemic, because staying home for 18 months and sitting on your butt at home, it's like we miss the real world. We miss people. So so people found that out. All those people say, I don't need anyone. I can do it on my own. They learned through that period that they really needed someone.
Exactly. Well, Yeshiva, we're not going to hold you any longer. We went over our regular. We almost 2 hours, but it was a great conversation. We had Carlos at the very beginning, and you are welcome to come back anytime you want some content with us. This has been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you
everyone.
So much.
Rhonda, Linda, Greg, we had dating somebody on earlier. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and putting your comments there, Candance. And so please come back next week to the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. Go over to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button so that you will get a notification. The show will be there, and you want to go back and take a listen to it and write down some key points like the love map and creative sharing meetings and calendaring your dates and date night and all of those great tips that Yeshiva shared with us. Please go back over and share with some friends, because we, in this world where politics is crazy, the world is crazy, I think the one thing that should be normal is love.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly. And if I may say, I'm on Instagram, so please follow me. I have a lot of tips and tricks about communication.
Put your link in the chat so we can copy and paste it in here.
Yeah, we can copy and paste it over there. And
because people are going to want to know how to reach you.
Yeah.
And if they're looking for a therapist, then they can go over to KNS Therapy. And give you a call or schedule an appointment. So as she said, I think therapy should be a normal part of every relationship.
Oh, for sure.
I agree.
I personally believe that should happen before the relationship gets even more solid. Don't you agree, Yeshiva?
Well, I
do. I agree.
Yeah,
I'm a therapist, I think.
So when you're moving past the dating, just the dating into casually and into an actual committed type of relationship, you probably do, so that you know who and what and where and why. Because sometimes it's just a matter of trying to sink in the likes and the dislikes.
Rhonda Holbert said,
thank you,
Yeshiva,
ma'am.
you rock. She said, Yeshiva, you
Oh,
rock.
thank you, Rhonda. Rhonda.
Rhonda is she's my co-partner. We teach an entrepreneur class together. We teach kids how to be entrepreneurs. We run that program together, and Rhonda is the has a nonprofit called Celebrate Life, and it's a cancer ministry. And she's a cancer survivor, and so she provides services for those to help them through that process when they're first diagnosed and going through treatment and scared to death. And so that's what Rhonda does.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's
and the other side of her is she's just this amazing business coach and leader. She does it in such a cool way that it's like the kids go, I can't believe it. This is great information. And she's just doing it with such ease. She is phenomenal, man. And I would love to refer and recommend her to anyone who needs a business coach like her, because she doesn't judge. You know, some coaches, they judge you like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? She doesn't do any of that. You know, she asks you questions, you know. So the decision you made to do that was, what was that decision? Why did you see what I'm saying? And then when she's holding that conversation with you and you're talking, it's like she's affirming things with you. She's affirming. She's doing the things that you talk about, Yeshiva.
Yeah. So, and if you guys want to have her counselor, you just go over to the Los Angeles Urban League. She's a consultant over there, business coaching with the Los Angeles Urban League. She actually retired from the Urban League, but she still does consulting work for them. So if you guys want to experience Miss Rhonda. All righty. Well, we're going to close out today, and we're going to again thank you, and we're going to send you a copy of this, a link to this video so you can share it as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and it's been awesome. And as we said, open invitation anytime you want to come back and visit us, and we'll share some of the other shows that we do in this series with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
you are so welcome.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, Mr. Gilbert, we about to ready to rock and roll.
That's right. We're about to do that outro. So, folks, tune in next week at 3 p.m. on YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live, or Facebook Live for the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. And we're on every Friday. Our focus is to help small business to become business ready, contract ready, loan ready, nonprofit ready. And we also help you out with your relationship and how it correlates with entrepreneurship. So we are out, and we'll see you next week.
As a small biz pro, I saw we roll, using procurement, program, and control. As a small biz pro, I saw we grow, using procurement, program, and control. I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur.